Somebody wants to open a car wash. Buy a strip of concrete, set up some brushes and hoses, and watch the cars roll through all day long. It looks like one of the simplest businesses imaginable. No inventory to spoil, no complicated menu, no long checkout lines. A car pulls in dirty, a car pulls out clean, money changes hands. Drive past any express tunnel on a Saturday afternoon, and the line stretches halfway down the block, engines idling, drivers scrolling their phones while they wait their turn. It looks like the easiest cash machine in retail. More cars, more washes, more money. Except that Saturday afternoon line is the 1 hour of the week that tells the most misleading story about this business. The truth is, a modern car wash is not really a car cleaning business. It is a water and real estate business that happens to have brushes attached to it. And once that distinction is understood, everything about how a wash actually makes money and how it quietly bleeds money starts to make sense. Before getting into what can go wrong, it helps to understand that there isn't one kind of car wash. There are several, and each one is a completely different bet dressed up in the same soap and foam. At the simplest end sits the self-service bay, a handful of stalls where a customer feeds coins or a card into a machine and sprays their own vehicle with a wand. It requires almost no staff, modest equipment, and a small footprint, and it can be built for well under 6 figures. Above that sits the in-bay automatic, a single robotic arm or rollover system that a customer drives into and waits inside while the machine does the work. It needs more mechanical investment, but still very little labor. Then comes the format that has quietly taken over the industry in the last decade, the express exterior tunnel, sometimes called a conveyor wash, where a car is pulled through on a chain while a sequence of brushes, foam arches, and dryers do the job in 3 to 5 minutes. And the driver never leaves the vehicle. This format is built around volume and speed, and it is the one most new operators are chasing right now because of how well the economics can scale. At the far end sits the full-service hand wash, where a team of workers actually dries, vacuums, and details the car by hand, charging a premium price for a level of attention the automated tunnels cannot match, but requiring far more labor to deliver it. Each of these is really a different answer to the same underlying question. Does the business make its money from a small number of customers paying a lot for careful attention, or from a huge number of customers paying a little for pure speed and convenience? That single decision determines almost every other number that follows. The first surprise for most new owners is that the land itself, before a single piece of equipment is bought, is often the single biggest and most binding constraint in the entire business. An express tunnel needs enough frontage on a busy road to be seen and easily entered. Enough depth to fit a 100-plus foot tunnel plus a stacking lane for cars waiting to enter, and enough additional space for vacuum stalls where customers finish up after the wash. That is not a small parcel. Suitable sites in visible, high-traffic corridors routinely run from a few $100,000 to well over $1 million just to acquire or secure a long-term ground lease, and that is before construction begins. And this is where the naive mental model breaks down first. The mental image is a hose and some brushes. The financial reality is a purpose-built industrial building. A modern tunnel structure, engineered specifically to house a wash line, handle constant water exposure, and meet drainage codes, typically costs anywhere from $1 to $3 million to design and construct depending on region, size, and finish level. Add site work, paving, signage, and canopy structures over the vacuum stalls, and total land plus building costs for a competitive express tunnel frequently land between $2 and $4 million before a single car has been washed. Equipment is the next layer, and it is far more specialized than most first-time owners expect. The tunnel line itself, the sequence of foam applicators, spinning cloth or foam brushes, high-pressure rinse arches, wax and sealant applicators, and the massive blower dryers at the exit, is usually purchased as an integrated system from one of a small number of specialized manufacturers, and a full express tunnel package commonly costs between $400,000 and $1 million depending on the number of wash stages and the level of automation. On top of that sits the conveyor chain system that physically pulls vehicles through, point-of-sale kiosks and license plate recognition cameras that let customers pay without a person present, and a water reclamation and treatment system, which is not optional in most jurisdictions and is one of the most expensive single-line items most new owners fail to budget correctly for. A proper reclaim system, which filters and recycles a large percentage of the water used in each wash cycle, can cost anywhere from $50,000 to several $100,000 depending on capacity and local wastewater regulations. And getting it wrong does not just waste money. It can trigger fines or even force a temporary shutdown if a facility is found discharging improperly treated water into the municipal sewer system. Stack the land, the building, the tunnel equipment, and the reclamation system together, and a single competitive express car wash location can require anywhere from $3 to $6 million in total investment before opening day. A figure that surprises almost everyone who started out imagining a hose and a bucket. Water itself deserves its own conversation because it is the one input that never stops being a cost, no matter how efficient the equipment gets. A single express wash cycle uses somewhere between 20 and 40 gallons of fresh water, even with a reclamation system running. And a busy tunnel location washing several hundred cars a day can move through tens of thousands of gallons in a single week. Combined water and sewer costs for a single busy location frequently run between $2,000 and $8,000 a month. And in drought-prone regions or municipalities with tiered commercial water pricing, that number can climb sharply during peak summer months, which happen to be exactly when demand for washes is also highest. Chemical costs stack on top of that. Soap, wax, tire shine, ceramic sealant, ionized rinse agents, ordinary detergent for the pre-soak stage, all of it is consumed with every single car and has to be restocked continuously. A well-run tunnel typically spends somewhere between $1 and $3 in chemical cost per vehicle washed, which sounds small in isolation but adds up to tens of thousands of dollars a year at meaningful volume. None of these costs are dramatic on their own. Stacked together month after month, they quietly define the actual margin the business is working with long before rent, payroll, or debt service ever enter the picture. Now for labor, which is where the express tunnel format reveals its real structural advantage over the older full-service model, and also where it reveals its own risk. A traditional full-service hand wash might employ 15 to 30 workers per shift, drying, vacuuming, and detailing cars by hand, and payroll alone can consume 40 to 50% of revenue. An express exterior tunnel, by contrast, is designed specifically to minimize labor. A location can often run with as few as 4 to 8 employees per shift, mostly greeters directing traffic into the tunnel entrance and attendants helping at the vacuum stalls, because the actual washing is fully automated. This is not a minor efficiency. It is the entire reason the express model has become the dominant growth format in the industry over the last 15 years. Labor as a share of revenue at a well-run express tunnel can run as low as 15 to 25%, less than half of what the full-service model requires. Fewer employees also means fewer scheduling headaches, less turnover cost, and a business that is far less exposed to minimum wage increases than its full-service competitors. The trade-off is upfront capital. The automation that replaces 20 workers with 6 is expensive to buy and expensive to maintain. And every dollar saved on payroll has already been spent, months or years earlier, on the machine that replaced the person. This is where the business starts to reveal the idea that actually explains almost everything else about how modern car washes make money, and it is a close cousin of the logic that runs gyms. Streaming services and gym memberships. It is the unlimited monthly plan. A customer pays somewhere between $20 and $40 a month, scans a tag or has their license plate recognized at the entrance, and can drive through as many times as they want, once a day every day for the entire month. On the surface, this looks like a terrible deal for the business. Why would an operator let someone wash their car unlimited times for the price of 2 or 3 individual washes? The answer is the same one that explains the gym membership that never gets used. Most subscribers do not come anywhere close to using their unlimited plan to its full potential. Industry data consistently shows that the average subscriber washes their car only a handful of times a month, often 2 to 4 visits, while paying for genuinely unlimited access. A tiny fraction of subscribers, the enthusiasts who wash weekly or more, are subsidized entirely by the much larger group who signed up with good intentions in January or after a heavy pollen season and then let the habit quietly fade while the card on file keeps getting charged. The membership is not really selling unlimited washes. It is selling the psychological comfort of unlimited washes, and the actual marginal cost of a member who does not show up is close to zero. That is the single most important economic fact in this entire business, and it is worth pausing on. The way it is worth pausing on in any subscription business. The customer who barely uses the product is often more valuable than the customer who uses it constantly, because every single visit costs the business water, chemicals, and equipment wear. While every month of silent non-use costs the business almost nothing at all, the consequence of this logic is that the monthly membership base, not the one-time wash customer paying $10 to $20 at the kiosk, has become the true engine of the express car wash business. Operators actively push customers toward the subscription at the point of sale, sometimes pricing a single wash so close to the monthly membership price that subscribing becomes the obviously rational choice, even for someone who only intends to wash their car once or twice. Once a customer is on a recurring monthly charge, retention becomes the central financial lever of the entire operation in exactly the same way it is for a gym. A location that can hold on to its membership base and slowly keep adding new subscribers builds a predictable, recurring revenue stream that is largely insulated from any single slow week of weather. A location that leaks members faster than it replaces them can look busy on a sunny Saturday and still be quietly losing ground every single month. Because the actual foundation of the business, the recurring monthly charge, is eroding underneath the visible traffic. Location, as with almost every real estate-anchored business, is not a secondary consideration here. It is close to the entire game. Visibility and traffic count are everything because an express tunnel depends on impulse and habit, a driver seeing the sign on their daily commute and pulling in on the way home. Sites along roads with 15,000 to 25,000 vehicles passing per day are considered strong candidates, and traffic counts below that threshold make it genuinely difficult to generate enough volume to justify the multi-million-dollar build cost. Proximity to residential density matters as much as raw traffic count, since the membership model depends on customers living or working close enough to make repeat visits convenient, ideally within a 5 to 7 minute drive. And competition matters more here than in almost any other retail format discussed in this kind of breakdown. Because express car washes have become one of the most heavily developed commercial real estate categories in the country over the past decade, backed by significant private equity investment chasing exactly the recurring revenue logic just described. It is now common for 2 or 3 express tunnels to open within a mile or two of each other in growing suburban corridors. And when that happens, they compete directly on membership price, sometimes triggering a race to the bottom that compresses margins across every operator in the area. Scale changes the equipment. It does not change the math. Understanding how the revenue and cost lines actually come together requires walking through a plausible year for a mid-size express tunnel location. A well-positioned site might wash somewhere between 150 and 400 cars on an average day, with sharp swings based on weather, since rain suppresses same-day demand but often produces a surge in the days immediately following, as drivers rush to remove road salt, mud, or pollen. Average revenue per vehicle, blending one-time customers paying full retail price with the much larger membership base paying a discounted effective rate per visit, typically lands somewhere between $8 and $15. At the midpoint of that range and a moderate daily car count, a single location can generate somewhere between $1 and $3 million in annual revenue, which sounds enormous compared to almost any other small business format covered in this kind of breakdown. But the cost side is equally large. Between water and sewer, chemicals, labor, equipment maintenance, insurance, credit card processing fees on thousands of small transactions, and debt service on the multi-million-dollar initial build, a well-run express tunnel often nets somewhere between 15 and 25% in operating margin once the location has matured and built a stable membership base, which can translate into several $100,000 a year in owner profit at a single strong site. That is a genuinely attractive number, and it is the reason the format has attracted so much investment capital in recent years. It is also a number that takes time to reach. The realistic timeline for reaching that mature, profitable state is longer than most new owners expect, and it is the single riskiest stretch of the entire business. A brand new location typically needs 12 to 24 months to build a membership base large enough to cover its fixed costs reliably, and every month spent below that threshold burns through the working capital reserve set aside before opening. Equipment financing and construction loans on a facility that costs several $1 million to build come with substantial monthly debt service, regardless of how many cars show up that week, and a slow ramp-up period combined with an unusually rainy season or a new competitor opening nearby during the exact window a location is trying to build its own membership base, can turn a promising site into a financially strained one before it ever reaches its full potential. This is the quiet risk hiding underneath every glossy new car wash opening. The building is real, the equipment is real, the debt is real from day one. But the recurring membership revenue that is supposed to cover all of it has to be built customer by customer, month by month. And that process cannot be rushed by spending more on the tunnel itself. Mechanical breakdown is a cost category that deserves its own attention, because unlike a gym treadmill or a restaurant oven, the equipment inside a tunnel wash is running almost constantly during business hours, exposed to water, chemicals, and grit for every single minute of every single car. Brush material wears down and needs periodic replacement. Chain conveyors need regular maintenance and eventual replacement. Dryers, pumps, and reclamation filtration systems all require scheduled servicing, and unscheduled breakdowns are common enough that most well-run operators budget several $1,000s a month simply for equipment maintenance and repair, with that figure climbing substantially in the first few years as newly installed systems reveal their weak points. A tunnel breakdown is also uniquely visible and costly in a way a broken treadmill is not, because the entire line stops, cars back up onto the street, and every minute of downtime during a busy period is direct lost revenue that can never be recovered, unlike a quiet weekday afternoon breakdown that barely dents the day's total. There is also a structural choice sitting underneath all of this that mirrors the franchise versus independent decision seen across almost every consumer-facing business format. A handful of national and regional car wash brands offer franchise or partnership arrangements, bringing a recognized name, standardized equipment specifications, group purchasing discounts on chemicals and parts, and marketing support. In exchange, franchisees typically pay an upfront franchise fee plus an ongoing royalty of several % of gross revenue. For a first-time owner navigating multi-million-dollar construction decisions and unfamiliar water regulations for the first time, that support can be worth the cost. But increasingly in this industry, the more consequential capital decision is not franchise versus independent ownership. It is whether to own the real estate outright or lease it, and whether to buy the tunnel equipment outright or finance it through equipment-specific lenders who specialize in the car wash sector. Because the total capital requirement is so large, very few new locations are opened purely with cash. Most combine a construction loan secured against the real estate with separate equipment financing for the tunnel system itself, and the blended monthly debt service across both loans becomes one of the largest fixed costs in the entire operation. A cost that, exactly like the gym equipment lease discussed in comparable breakdowns of other subscription-driven businesses, does not care whether the location is having a good month or a bad one. Regulation is a quieter risk than debt or weather, but it can be just as consequential, and it is almost never on the radar of someone imagining this business from the outside. Wastewater discharge is tightly regulated in most municipalities precisely because a car wash generates large volumes of runoff containing oil. Road grime and detergent residue, and operators are typically required to install and maintain approved pretreatment and reclamation systems, submit to periodic water quality testing, and in some jurisdictions, pay ongoing sewer surcharge fees calculated specifically on commercial wash water discharge. A facility found to be out of compliance can face significant fines, and in more serious cases can be ordered to halt water discharge entirely until the issue is corrected, which for a business entirely dependent on running water through its equipment all day is functionally the same as being ordered to close. Air quality and water usage restrictions can also tighten during regional drought conditions, sometimes restricting hours of operation or mandating additional conservation equipment on short notice, an operational risk that is largely unique to this water-intensive category among the business types typically profiled in this kind of breakdown. Weather deserves particular attention as both a friend and an enemy of this business, because unlike almost any other retail format, a car wash's daily revenue can swing wildly based on something completely outside anyone's control. Rain suppresses same-day traffic sharply, since almost nobody washes a car in the middle of a downpour. But it often produces a strong rebound in the days that follow as accumulated dirt and road spray drive people back in. Snow and road salt in colder climates create some of the strongest demand days of the entire year. Since salt residue actively damages a vehicle's undercarriage and paint if left too long, giving operators in northern regions a genuine winter surge that operators in warmer climates never see. But an extended stretch of wet weather, several rainy weeks in a row during a critical membership building period, can meaningfully slow the pace at which a new location reaches profitability. And a severe drought that triggers water restrictions can constrain even a mature, fully built-out location's ability to operate at full capacity during exactly the hot summer months when demand for washing is otherwise highest. Putting all of this together produces two genuinely different versions of the same business, and the gap between them comes down to a small number of variables rather than any dramatic single event. In the strong scenario, the site was chosen on a high-traffic corridor with limited nearby competition. The membership base built steadily through the first 2 years and now covers debt service comfortably even during slow weeks. Water and chemical costs stayed within the budgeted range, and equipment has required only routine maintenance rather than major unplanned repair. Under those conditions, a mature express tunnel location can generate the kind of 15 to 25% operating margin described earlier, translating into several $100,000 of owner profit annually from a single site. A genuinely strong outcome that explains why the format has attracted so much investment capital. In the weaker scenario, a second tunnel opened 18 months later, half a mile down the same road, and both locations ended up competing on membership price. Churn ran higher than projected because service quality or wait times slipped during peak hours. A major reclamation system failure required an unplanned 5-figure repair and several days of reduced capacity. And a wetter than normal spring slowed the pace of new membership signups during the exact window the business needed to reach its break-even point. None of these individual events would sink a location on its own. Stacked together, quietly, month after month, they can turn a facility that cost several $1,000,000 to build into one running at a thin single-digit margin or an outright loss, while the vacuum stalls outside still look reasonably busy on any given weekend. The visible line of cars waiting to enter the tunnel says nothing at all about whether the underlying financial structure, the debt, the membership retention rate, and the water bill can actually hold together underneath it. So if someone is genuinely considering opening a car wash, the lesson underneath all of this is the same one that shows up across nearly every subscription-anchored business. The decision was never really about how many cars can be pulled through the tunnel on a busy Saturday. It is about how reliably the business can hold onto a base of paying members who quietly stop showing up month after month while the charge on their card keeps arriving like clockwork.